Man, I only got 5 minutes left and I got 20 questions left. How am I gonna do this? Who keeps talking? Why do they keep talking? I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna have to do this at school. Now who's clicking event? Stop clicking event. I feel like I'm doing this project wrong. No, this can't be possibly right. But I don't have time at the school to do this. What time is it? Oh, no, the teacher's looking at me. Who's went out the door? I only got 2 more minutes. How am I gonna finish? I'm not gonna be able to finish this. I have ADHD, and ADHD is like when you're sitting in a classroom and you're working on a test and there's 5 minutes left. Your mind bounces back and forth between how much time you have left and the questions on the test, and it just keeps bouncing back and forth. You're eventually more worried about how much time you have left than you are worrying about getting the right answer on the test. What is life without medication? Basically, like, you have no control over what your body does. I feel like I'm hearing like every little noise that can be humanly possible. I hear like every single noise every second, and mostly I gotta move around a lot. I can't stop moving. If I stop moving, then I'll get up again and start moving again. It kind of feels like you just always moving around. Like, you're never tired until like late at night, and you don't want to go to sleep at night. One of the things that bothers me about ADHD is it's focusing. It's hard to focus on what I'm supposed to do. My mind usually goes to like, oh, I gotta do this when I get home, or gotta do something else. It gets frustrating, but then after a while you're like, yeah, I gotta start calming down because otherwise I can get in trouble. I get more frustrated when I'm not on the medication because without it I just get, my mind is like, I gotta get mad at this for no reason whatsoever. With medication, it makes me feel like I have more control of my body. I can calm down a lot easier. I'm not so talkative. I'm not like getting in trouble a lot. I'd usually like get in trouble because I wouldn't be quiet, or like I would do something that I'm not supposed to. I feel like it helps me mostly because like I can go online and check my grades, and I can see that my medication has helped me progress through all the years of school and got me to where I am in high school. Yeah, I feel like without medication I would still be stuck in elementary school because like I wouldn't always know what to do in school. I wanted to be somewhere else all the time. I usually calm myself down by like listening to music, or since I like baseball, I'll always go on and watch baseball. Start counting, take deep breaths. And if you're in school, maybe ask your teacher if you can go out of the class and go get a drink of water. Or if you're in like a self-advocacy class, you can ask your teacher if you can take a nap for a little bit. It helps your body calm down from all like the energy you mostly just use by walking, talking, and moving around a lot.
Having a kid with ADHD is kind of like being on an ongoing constant train that never stops at the station. When he's not on his medication, he's very talkative, very on the go physically, fidgety, just always on the move. I sought help for my son when he was actually in his first year of kindergarten. I kind of knew myself, or thought he had ADHD before that, just because of how he was as a young child, constantly on the go, would switch from activity to activity within milliseconds. It felt like had a hard time focusing on one activity for very long. And when he was in kindergarten, the teachers kind of confirmed that for me, that he had difficulty focusing. He blurted out a lot, he interrupted, he had a hard time staying in his seat, or was very fidgety with whatever he was working on or whatever he was playing with. And tried different aspects, like I said, first before medication, with therapy and just kind of watching what he ate, making sure that he was getting adequate sleep. He did repeat kindergarten, and so his second year of kindergarten we were still seeing a lot of the same issues, and it was starting to get to the point where he was not enjoying school. And that's the last thing I wanted, is to be in kindergarten and have at least 12 years of schooling left, and I hate school. So we looked at the medication route, and it has been the right choice for my son. Having my son on ADHD medication, he is able to focus. I'm able to carry on a conversation with him where I don't feel like I'm always repeating myself. He's able to answer questions, and I don't feel like he's bouncing off the walls. I've heard people say, why do you put him on medication? It just makes him a robot. With my son, tried many different things with behavioral things and watching what he ate, but medication really helped him being able to focus, and I looked at it as if medication helped him in school, where he wasn't struggling so much and he wasn't hating school, then it was a positive alternative versus not being medicated. The big stigma that I guess I feel as having a child with ADHD is, and I've heard it verbally before, is, oh, you took the easy road out, by medicating him, by having him on medicine. And again, I just say again, and I've said to someone that said this to me, I did what needed to be done for my child, what was in his best interest. It was in his best interest as a whole, at home, at school, with friends, to be on medication versus not to be on medication. Some of the tools that I've learned to help deal with a child with ADHD is something called interpersonal skills, and that means, kind of in a nutshell, is especially when my son does not have his medication, he can be really quick to react, really, fidgety from one thing to the next. And so if I don't focus on what he's not doing or what he's per se doing wrong as to what I need him to do, and to make sure that he knows what I need him to do, or asking, it's just kind of a slow down process, and to ask him, do you understand what I'm asking, or do you understand what I'm saying? Even with his medication, sometimes I'll have to ask that, and if you get that clear communication of him being able to repeat back to me kind of what I want or what I need, that has been a very good skill for me in what could have potentially been a control battle, back and forth, or an argument, or him in trouble or dysregulated. Other tips I have for parents of a child with ADHD is give that child a sense of control, a sense of ownership. I know there's times when my son has expressed to me that, I don't know why I'm doing this, or I feel out of control. And so if you help them to kind of own their emotions and where they're at, and I always ask my son how he feels like if we're at the psychiatrist and we're talking about new medication or new doses. Even at a young age, when he was diagnosed at 6, I wanted his input on those things and how he felt about it. So it helps him feel like he has a say in his care. You know, ultimately as the parent, I'm making what I feel is the best decision for him. And there's been times where he hasn't wanted to be on medication or take his medication, but I always try to get his input into his care so he just has that feeling of ownership. Advice that I'd give to other parents having a child with ADHD is to advocate for your child. What is best for your child? Because what might work for one child won't necessarily work for your child. Do what needs for your child. If that means counseling, medication, medication, whatever meets your child's needs the best. Because no two children will be exactly alike. Keep those lines of communication open with your providers, counselors, whoever it might be. That having that team is crucial, has been crucial for me.
All children, will demonstrate difficulties with their emotions and their behaviors at times. Young children in particular can be very active, they can be very restless and impulsive at times, which means they don't stop to think before they act. At the same time, kids can also be very inattentive or distracted by things, more so than what we'll see with adults. For some of these kids, again, understand that these behaviors are going to be pretty typical, pretty normal, but for some kids, we're going to see that these behaviors occur more frequently than they do for most other children. When we see kids who demonstrate significant problems with hyperactivity and impulsivity and inattention that occurs across almost all areas of their life, home and school and within social relationships, we start to consider whether they may meet criteria for something we call attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a brain disorder that occurs within kids and adults. Oftentimes we'll diagnose ADHD in kids who range in ages from 6 to 12. These kiddos, again, understand it's a brain disorder which affects their ability to control their emotions and behavior. And so there are 3 different types of ADHD. Some kids are identified as being a bit more hyperactive and impulsive. These children have a hard time slowing down. They're commonly described as having ants in their pants. They really struggle to stop and think before they respond. Some children we see are just very inattentive. They have a very hard time following directions. They have a hard time organizing things. They have a hard time sustaining their attention, particularly on activities that they really don't enjoy. And then you have a third type of kids who are oftentimes a combination of both the hyperactivity and impulsivity as well as inattention. I think parents need to understand that, again, ADHD is a chronic or lifelong condition. However, it does not have to be a limitation in any manner for children. Certainly some things are going to be more difficult, but with the right interventions in place, there's absolutely no reason that these children cannot be as successful as any other child without some of those same limitations. If as a parent, you're concerned that your child may meet criteria for a diagnosis of ADHD, I would recommend that a good place to start is touching base with your physician, or in our community, we're fortunate to have a number of behavioral health clinicians that are available. A thorough evaluation usually consists of thorough psychological or diagnostic evaluation. We will, as clinicians, will make observations of a young child We will gather information from parents or other caregivers, and we'll also gather information from educators or teachers about how a child is doing across multiple environments. We will also likely look to complete more formalized testing, which may measure their specific ability to control their impulses and maintain attention across a variety of different tasks. Together, all that information combined will give us a complete picture of what may be impacting a child. Now again, understand there can be a lot of other behavioral health problems or stressors in a child's life that can mimic a diagnosis of ADHD. For instance, a child with a great deal of anxiety may have a great deal of difficulty focusing or paying attention. So it's very important that we complete a thorough evaluation so that we have a conclusive understanding of what may be going on with that child. So one thing I would kind of recommend to parents is, again, oftentimes kids with ADHD get labeled as being bad kids, or space cadets. I'll hear that at times because they have difficulty concentrating, or they're falling behind in school or demonstrating behavioral problems in school. And so, if there are concerns that parents have or that your child's teacher is raising, I guess I would really encourage parents not to neglect those concerns and check out have your child checked out by your primary care provider or one of the child therapists, psychologists, clinicians within the area. Again, sometimes the longer these problems develop for children, the more problems that develop over time. So that the sooner we can intervene, the better the outcome is going to be long term. Understand that when we look to treat ADHD, the first thing we have to understand is that it's a chronic condition, which means that it's lifelong. And we need to develop interventions that are based upon the fact that this will be something that's present with a person throughout their life. It is definitely something that can be very well managed with the right interventions. What that typically will consist of is visiting with a physician or a child psychiatrist to explore various medication options. Now, as a psychologist, oftentimes, I'm going to emphasize more in the way of environmental and behavioral interventions for children. But when it comes to treating ADHD, we see a great deal of benefit when children are placed on medications to help manage their symptoms. Those medications will have a more immediate effect, where some of the environmental and behavioral interventions, myself as a child psychologist can assist with, they just take a little bit longer to have the desired outcome. So initially, again, we will look at medication interventions, but we will also look at behavioral therapies, which can be more family-based, in that a parent can learn specific parenting interventions to help them best support their children's emotional and behavioral development. And as a child ages, they can also learn particular tools to help them better self-regulate or essentially manage their emotions and behavior. There are specific tools or strategies that parents can employ to help them manage their children's behavior and help them learn to manage their behavior on a daily basis within the home environment. Some general things, without going into too much detail, include just keeping your child on a daily schedule. All of us, even kids, do best when we have a lot of predictability and consistency in our environment. So keeping a schedule is very important for kids diagnosed with ADHD, and all kids in general. Limiting distractions is very important, and unfortunately we live in a world where there are plenty of distractions available at all times, particularly with the screens that too many of us have unfettered or uncontrolled access to. We want to work to kind of decrease clutter or organize our environment. Psychologically, we all do better when our environment is more organized and well managed. Parents need to really focus on and learn how to reward positive behavior in their children, but also be consistent with holding kiddos accountable for misbehavior. We also want to help them find activities in which they're going to derive a sense of accomplishment. For a lot of kiddos with ADHD, self-esteem needs to be something that we pay attention to. And the way that we can build self-esteem is by helping them become involved in activities that they enjoy and derive some success with that activity. And a final thing that I think about with parents is related to that discipline is, as parents, we all need our own tools to help us successfully manage our own frustration so that we are parenting without too much in the way of emotion, because that can really affect our ability to be consistent with our kiddos. I would also just want to emphasize with parents, I often hear that they feel guilty or ashamed if their child is having some emotional or behavioral difficulties at home or at school. Obviously, we all pride ourselves on how well our kids are doing, and we hate to think of there being anything wrong, and so it's natural to feel somewhat guilty or ashamed if our child is struggling. But there's no need in that, and our child isn't going to benefit if we don't take time to recognize that there may be some struggles here, and it's absolutely okay to reach out for help. So I would urge all parents, if you have concerns about your child's emotional or behavioral functioning, do not hesitate to check out and reach out to available resources at any time. We're here to help.